The fluorescent lights vibrated above my head, spilling a cold glow through the underground corridors of S4. It was 3 in the morning, the hour when even concrete seems to breathe. I made my rounds between the containment cells, listening to the constant hum of the machines mixed with the distant sound of the ventilation. My security badge carried an authorization that officially did not exist, access to levels the government denied, to places that lived only in rumors and erased reports. For months, the intercom of Cell 7 emitted only static, a white, endless noise, as if the very air whispered secrets no one should hear. The superiors said it was atmospheric interference, waves from the desert reflecting in the ionosphere, distorting the signals. But that dawn, the static changed. Suddenly, a voice crossed the hiss, clear, calm, speaking English better than any American I knew. It was the moment I realized that everything we had been told was a lie, and that, somehow, that lie was alive. Now they monitor everything, every transmission, every whisper, every breath through the headsets. And if they come after me tomorrow, at least someone will know. My name is Marcus Webb, and for 8 months I worked the night shift at S4, the facility that doesn't exist on any map. 3. Levels below the Nevada desert, Ultra. Authorization, the kind of job where one wrong signature can take you to federal prison or erase your existence. Completely. I was recruited straight from the Air Force. 22. Years of impeccable service, no family, no ties, perfect candidate. They promised triple the salary and asked only for discretion to walk the corridors. Check the cells and never question what I saw down there, or what I thought I saw. The training was standard, compartmentalized, segmented, all based on the need to know. My sector, Level C, cells 1 to 12, dealt with biological containment protocols. Environmental suits were mandatory in cells 4, 9, and 11. And one absolute rule: never approach cell 7. They said the static was interference from the desert. I believed it. For months, I believed everything. The night shift operated with a minimal team, me, 2 guards on other levels, and Dr. Elizabeth Kane in the observation booth. She was the one who coordinated the rounds through encrypted radio. Professional, polite, but cold as the metal around. The kind of person who knew how to keep secrets long enough to forget what it was to truly speak. The first weeks were routine. Walk, note readings, report anomalies. The cells seemed empty. White rooms, reinforced walls, heavy doors. Cells 4 and 9 required hazmat suits, and the observation windows were polarized. Black as pitch, I never saw what was inside. But cell 7, from the beginning it was different. The door was reinforced titanium, with 3 independent locking mechanisms and an intercom that was never silent. The hiss was dense, almost tangible. It seemed to vibrate inside the skull when I passed. Whenever I reported it, Dr. Kane always answered the same. Atmospheric interference. Webb, the desert plays tricks on radio signals. You'll get used to it, but I never got used to it. Something in that static sounded wrong, as if there were someone trying to speak beneath the noise. There was something in that static that followed me. It was not random noise. There was rhythm, cadence, as if a thought tried to cross through the sound. With time, I began to change the path of my rounds, avoiding cell 7 as much as possible. The electric hum seemed to pass through the helmet, penetrate the skull, and nest in the part of the brain where nightmares are born. The other guards were cordial but distant. Phillips on level A, taking care of the administrative part, Chen on level B, responsible for something they said was recovered aircraft components. We only saw each other during shift changes or while having coffee in the break room. We never talked about what happened down there. It was a silent rule. The walls had ears, and those ears belonged to people, capable of erasing you with a signature. 3 months later, Phillips simply disappeared. Routine transfer, said Dr. Kane. But a week before, he spoke about his daughter's birthday and the gift he would buy for her. No one abandons that overnight. Chen disappeared a month later. Same explanation. From then on, the coffee became mine alone. That was when they brought 2 new guards, Jenkins and Rodriguez. Younger, restless look. nervous energy of those who have already seen too much. Jenkins was the kind who looked over his shoulder even when he was alone. One night, during the shift change, he asked me, "Have you ever heard anything strange down there?" "Strange how?" I replied. He lowered his voice. "Voices. Coming from the cells." The memory of the hiss from Cell 7 struck through me like a snap, but I repeated what they had taught me. Atmospheric interference. "The desert does that with signals," Jenkins nodded, but his look said something else. He heard it too. Rodriguez was quieter, but had a disturbing habit. He would stand still before Cell 7, motionless, head tilted as if he were listening to something. When I asked what he was doing, he replied, "The static there is different. More organized." That word stuck to me like rust. Organized, and he was right. As the weeks passed, I began to recognize patterns, rhythms, breaths. That interference seemed alive. Dr. Kane noticed. She began to watch us closely. Sudden checks, subtle questions, psychological evaluations. She said it was routine, but her gaze always weighed, as if calculating the moment when someone would give in. "Isolation can play tricks, Webb," she said once, with the cold voice of someone describing a meteorological phenomenon. People start to see faces in the shadows and hear voices where there is only static. It's normal, but Jenkins was not normal at all. He began to avoid corridors, to skip steps in the rounds. Rodriguez started taking longer in the surface elevator, just to see the sun. They seemed exhausted, drained, as if something sucked the rest out of them at night. It took time until it happened to me. It was on a Tuesday in October. The temperature had dropped, and the air was so cold that breath came out in mist. The sound of my steps echoed like metallic beats in the void. Everything was the same, until I reached Cell. The static seemed different, softer. Beneath it, something new, a rhythmic sound, almost imperceptible, breathing. I stopped. The corridor seemed narrower, the air heavier, the lights flickered with a sickly hum, and for an instant I was certain that the entire building was watching me. Then the intercom crackled. A crack, silence. Another crack, then. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, S. Oh, my blood froze. My hands trembled as I reached for the radio, but I hesitated. What would I say? That the atmospheric interference was asking for help? That the desert was trying to talk to me? I stood there for long minutes. The sound ceased. The cell returned to the normal hiss. Chaotic, random, but nothing seemed random anymore. I went back to routine, trying to convince myself that it was only fatigue, loneliness, a trick of the mind. But deep down, I knew. Someone or something in Cell 7 was trying to communicate, and the worst, it had been doing so for months. I was only now beginning to understand. The next night I came back prepared, not officially. Of course, there is no protocol to deal with atmospheric interference, but I needed to know. I took with me a portable audio recorder, the kind hunters use to capture nocturnal sounds in the woods. If something was really trying to cross that static, I would have proof. Jenkins covered Level B. Rodriguez had called in sick, 3rd time that month. Dr. Kane seemed restless during the briefing, her eyes fixed on the monitors as if expecting something. "Any unusual reading last night, Webb?" "None, ma'am. Normal rounds, no anomalies." She nodded, but I saw in her eyes that she didn't believe. It was as if she already knew what I had heard, and was only waiting for me to admit it. "Remember," she said with a half-frozen smile, "isolation makes the mind see patterns where there is nothing." I knew what she was doing, planting doubt. But that night, doubting was no longer an option. The facility seemed different, quieter, colder. The fans sounded muffled, as if the air weighed tons. Even my steps seemed swallowed by the concrete. When I reached Cell 7, the recorder began to pick up noise immediately. The static was not the same. It was more contained, pulsing at precise intervals. There was form in it, rhythm, intention. I held the recorder close to the intercom and waited. For 10 minutes, the same sequence of electrical pulses repeated, almost like a code. Then a strange modulation, A sudden change in pattern, and then, through the static, a word took shape. Help. The sound was so clear that I dropped the recorder. The echo of the impact spread through the empty corridor like a gunshot. I knelt, picked up the device and looked around, but there was no one. Only the dense silence. Cut by the electric hiss, I waited 1 more minute, 5, 10, nothing. The cell returned to the normal. Disordered noise as if nothing had happened, but the recording had captured everything. In the break room, I played the audio with headphones. The interference filled my ears. But beneath it, there was pattern, regular waves, breathing masked by the noise, and then, clear as day, help. The voice was male. Firm American human. Before I could think, the radio crackled. Webb, report to observation. Now, Dr. Kane's tone left no room for doubt. I turned off the recorder and hid it in my pocket. The elevator to level A seemed slower than ever. When the doors opened, she was already waiting for me, standing, impeccable as always, but her gaze was now predatory. How are you feeling tonight, Webb? Fine, ma'am. Normal rounds. No incidents. She didn't answer. She turned a monitor toward me, on the screen. Me, standing before cell 7, recorder in hand. What is that? My throat dried. A recorder. I thought maybe it could register the patterns, help maintenance fix the interference. She laughed softly, without humor. You think this is a maintenance problem? I just wanted to understand what's happening. Dr. Kane went to a cabinet and pulled out a thick folder, marked with the red seal of classified. She placed it on the table and opened it. Papers, reports, medical files. I recognized names, Phillips, Chen, and others I never knew. All guards assigned to level C went through the same sequence, she said, flipping through the pages. First, they noticed the difference in the static. Then they hear patterns, then voices. And finally, they start asking questions. She took out a photo. The pale, terrified face of Rodriguez. 3 days ago, he claimed that the voice from Cell 7 knew his daughter's name, details that weren't in any file. He said we were keeping an American citizen captive. And what happened to him? Transferred, she answered without blinking, but the pause between the words betrayed something. Transferred wasn't the right term. Doctor, what's inside that cell? She was silent for a moment, then leaned back and spoke softly, almost in a whisper. It's been there for 12 years. It was never violent, never tried to escape. But it speaks. All the time, my whole body froze. Speaks what? Says it is Captain Michael Torres, Air Force pilot, shot down on mission over Iraq. 2003, missing in action. But Captain Torres was buried in Arlington 8 years ago. Remains identified by DNA and dental records. Then, who's in there? She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw fear. True fear. That's what we've been trying to find out for over a decade. He has Torres's memories. The habits, the gestures, the tone of voice. He knows secrets only Torres could know. But biologically, he is not human. She opened another folder. Genetic tests, CT scans, contradictory medical reports. Some said normal, others described impossible cellular structures. He looked human in almost everything, she continued. But there are organic compounds in his blood that don't exist in our periodic table. And the most disturbing part, he knows things he couldn't possibly know. Information from classified projects. Locked files, even thoughts. You're saying he reads minds? I'm saying he isn't what he seems. She came closer, voice low and controlled. We recovered the subject from a crash site 12 years ago, along with technology that pushed our aerospace program ahead by decades. He claims he just wanted to go home, but he doesn't speak of Earth. My whole body shivered. He says he's not from here? He says he was from here, but not anymore. Dr. Kane stood up. Her look was cold, clinical, but there was something behind it, a glint of contained fear. She walked to the monitors. On them, the familiar image, Cell 7, dark, motionless, silent. The subject was never aggressive, she said, without facing me. But he is. Persuasive. Extremely persuasive. He knows what to say, how to say it, when to say it, and he always finds a way to awaken empathy in whoever listens to him. She took a deep breath before continuing. Rodriguez thought he was guarding an innocent man. He wanted to report him to Congress. He spoke of human rights. What happened to him? I asked, even knowing I didn't want the answer. What always happens when someone gets too close? She said with a neutral voice. Transfer, relocation, you understand. But the way she averted her eyes said everything. Transfer meant disappearance. She then came closer. Webb, I like you. You are professional, discreet, and that's why I'm going to be honest. The thing in that cell will try to convince you that it is human. It will tell stories, use real memories were stolen from a dead man. It will sound sincere, but it isn't. Its mind, or whatever that thing is a perfect experiment in psychological infiltration. Her words weighed. The recorder in my pocket felt heavier with every heartbeat. Proof that something, or someone, was trying to communicate. But would it be a man asking for help? Or something more dangerous testing my loyalty? What do you want me to do? I asked. Do your job, nothing else. Don't answer, don't interact, don't listen. That static is communication, but as long as you don't answer, it can't reach you. That's how we keep control. Dr. Kane accompanied me to the elevator. Before the doors closed, she looked straight at me. Remember, Webb, everything it says will sound true. That's why it's dangerous. The elevator descended as if crossing kilometers of stone. When I reached level C, the silence seemed thicker than the air. Each step echoed heavy, the metal of the boots sounding like heartbeats in the void. Her words hammered in my mind. Everything it says will sound true. But as I walked, the recorder burned in my pocket, a living reminder of the voice that had begged for help. Human voice. Human fear. The facility was colder than ever. My breath turned into small clouds. A low hum vibrated through the concrete, something between the sound of a distant turbine and that of a giant heart beating underfoot. The lights flickered at irregular intervals, casting shadows that moved on their own. When I reached Cell 7, the intercom was already active. No static, no noise, only silence. The kind of silence that precedes something alive. Should have followed orders. I should have kept walking, but curiosity and or maybe empathy. 1. I pressed the intercom button. Hello, for an instant, nothing. Then, a voice. Thank God. I thought no one would ever answer. The sound passed through the speaker like an electric discharge. There was no distortion, no echo. It was the voice of a man, early 30s. Light Texan accent, firm, disciplined tone, but exhausted. Who are you? I asked. Captain Michael Torres. United States Air Force. Service number 247896641. I've been kept here for 12 years. No trial, no lawyer, no external communication. I need you to contact my superior at Nellis Base. My mouth went dry. It was exactly what Dr. Kane had described. The same name, the same record, the same story. Captain Torres is dead, I replied. Buried in Arlington. Silence. Then a bitter laugh. I know. I saw the funeral. My wife cried before an empty coffin. My daughter, she was 8 years old. Now she calls, "Another man, father. They said I was a hero." But they buried. A body that wasn't mine. The tone of pain in his voice was so real it made my stomach turn. It was impossible to fake something like that. What happened to you, Torres? Test flight over Nevada. Engine failure, ejected at 40,000 feet. Woke up in this cell. They said I had been exposed to experimental technology, that my biology was altered, and because of that, I could never leave here again. Dr. Kane says you're not human. The answer came in a whisper. I don't know what I am either. They cut me, examined me, injected me with things. Sometimes I remember places I've never been, people I've never met, but I also remember my home, my daughter, the scar on my hand. That's real. Webb, I'm real. I looked at the black glass. Nothing. But I knew someone was there, someone watching me. They say you read minds. I don't read, but I know you've worked here for 8 months. that you live alone, that you call your sister in Colorado every Sunday. And that. Right now you're afraid of me, but also sorry for me. My body froze. None of that was in any file, no one knew. How do you know that? I don't know, since the accident, I can feel people. It's like picking up a signal that never stops transmitting. The corridor seemed smaller, the air denser. Dr. Kane's words echoed. Everything it says will sound true. But that fear, that broken voice, that humanity, did not sound like a lie. What do you want from me? For someone to see me? For 12 years? I've been a ghost. I don't want to escape. I just want to be acknowledged. I want someone out there to know that Captain Michael Torres is still alive. I should have turned off the intercom, but I stayed there, trapped in his voice. They say the other guards who believed you disappeared. Torres laughed without humor. Is that what they say? Rodriguez lasted 3 months. Phillips, 6. Jenkins, almost a year. You know what they have in common? They all found out too much. What happened to them? They didn't disappear. They were reprogrammed. New memories. New lives. The technology they study here isn't about aliens, Webb. It's about us, about what it means to be human. They're learning to erase, to rewrite, to replace. Rodriguez probably lives in Arizona now, swearing he's always been a mall security guard. His words hit me like a punch. What if it was true? What if all of us were just rewritten versions of someone who already forgot what was real? Torres took a deep breath on the other side of the line. Now you understand why they're afraid of me? Because if I get out of here, the world will find out what they're really doing in this place. You're trying to scare me, I said, though my voice sounded weaker than I wanted. I'm trying to warn you, Webb, Torres replied, calm, but with a weight in his voice that seemed to carry 12 years of imprisonment. Because I know what you're thinking right now. You've already started to doubt them. You already know there's something wrong with this place. That silence between one sentence and another seemed to have a life of its own. The distant sound of the ventilation system mixed with his voice, making everything more unreal. You brought that recorder because you wanted the truth, he continued. You questioned Dr. Kane because you didn't believe what she said, and now you're trapped between two worlds, the one they tell you to believe, and the one you saw with your own eyes. My hand went instinctively to my pocket. The recorder was still there, heavy as guilt. Proof, or illusion. I didn't know anymore. I need to see you, I said. With my own eyes. The window is polarized, Torres replied. They can see me, but you can't. That's how they maintain control. There must be a way. There was silence for a few seconds, then a whisper. There is. At the security post, at the end of the corridor, there's an override switch that releases the polarization for 30 seconds before automatically resetting. But think carefully, Webb. If you do this, there's no going back. When you see me, you'll know. And then you'll have to choose. Help me, or live, knowing you decided to do nothing. I looked toward the end of the corridor. The security panel seemed to stare back at me, a rectangular shadow under the cold light. My heart beat so hard that each step felt like a drum inside my head. Kane's voice echoed in my mind. Everything it says will sound true, but Torres's voice sounded too human to be an invention. I approached the panel. Each cell had a set of controls. Lighting, temperature, communication, observation. Cell 7's had a red label, authorized personnel only. I turned the key. The sound of the mechanism activating echoed like a dry snap in the silence. The cell's window began to clear, slowly, like fog dissipating under the sun. I took a few steps toward the glass, and then I saw him. A man, early 30s, short hair, pale face, unshaven beard, orange inmate uniform, but firm military posture. He looked tired, not just physically, but soul-weary. When he saw me, he stood up. He approached the window and placed his hand on the glass. His eyes, God, those eyes, had something I hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. He mouthed a single word. Please. The polarization returned, covering everything with the thick blackness of a lie. But the image stayed burned into me. That face was not that of a monster. It was of a man the whole world had forgotten. I pressed the intercom button with a trembling hand. I saw you. You are human. Silence. Then, a murmur. Yes. That single word carried 12 years of isolation, pain, and gratitude. I stood there, staring at the darkness where he was, knowing with a terrible certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. For the first time since I entered S4, I understood what I was truly part of, and I understood why all the others had disappeared after seeing what I just saw. My radio crackled. Dr. Kane's voice cut through the static like a blade. Webb, return to observation. Now. My hand trembled. Her voice came back sharper, carrying something that wasn't impatience, it was urgency. Webb, respond immediately. Copy, I murmured. On my way, but I didn't move. I stayed there, standing before Cell 7, staring at the dark glass. His image still pulsed in my head. The human face, the hand against the glass, the silent plea. Then the intercom hissed, Torres's voice, weak, almost a whisper. They know, don't they? They saw you on the cameras. My blood froze. Of course they saw. Every corridor, every door, every gesture was monitored, and I had just violated the only rule that really mattered. The radio hissed again. Kane's voice was cold. Surgical. Webb, we need to discuss your recent activities. Torres spoke at the same time, with growing desperation. Listen, you have maybe 10 minutes before they get there. Maybe less. They're going to take you for debriefing, but that's not an interview, Webb. It's erasure. What? Memory modification. They call it the cognitive restructuring protocol. After they inject the compound, you'll wake up believing you had a breakdown or a fever, or a bad dream, and you'll never remember me again. The elevator at the end of the corridor sounded with a metallic ding. My body reacted before my mind. One step back. Heart racing, adrenaline surging. Torres continued, take the recorder. Get it out of here, it's the only proof you have. They'll try to convince you it's empty. But it's not, Webb, keep it. Send it to someone, it's all that's left of me. How do you know about the recorder? I asked. I told you. I feel that now you believe me. The elevator doors opened. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor coordinated. Military. I pulled the recorder from my pocket. Small. Fragile. But at that moment it seemed to hold the weight of the world. A metallic voice echoed through the facility's loudspeakers. Security team approaching Cell 7. All unauthorized personnel. Evacuate immediately. Torres spoke one last time. Quick, tense. If you manage to get out, if you still remember, find Sarah Coleman, Phoenix, Arizona. Tell her I never stopped thinking about her. The footsteps were closer. Shock weapons, backpacks, black helmets, the unmistakable sound of a tactical unit. I promise, I whispered, and I ran. The emergency staircase seemed like an endless pit, the sound of my steps hitting the concrete mixed with the echo of those behind me. The subject is in motion, shouted a voice. Code 7 confirmed. I climbed 2 steps at a time. The air was dense, cutting my breath. The metallic sound of their boots rose behind me. Rhythmic, mechanical, relentless. Level B then, level A. My heart felt about to explode. The surface door required an access card. I swiped mine. Green light, unlocked. I entered the main corridor, gasping. A few night shift technicians looked at me confused. Before they could say anything, the lights flickered red. Siren. Lockdown. Lockdown initiated. All exits sealed. It was too late. At the end of the corridor, I saw Dr. Kane. Calm, controlled. 2 armed shadows beside her. She raised a hand in an almost maternal gesture. Webb, let's talk. You're confused. The entity in Cell 7 has a history of cognitive manipulation. You were exposed, but it can still be reversed. I saw him. Doctor, he's human. You saw what it wanted you to see. It doesn't have a stable physical form. It imitates appearance, voice, emotion. It creates empathy. That's what makes it dangerous. The guards surrounded me slowly. One of them held a metallic case. Inside, syringes. Is this a test? I asked. Are you seeing how much of your lies I can take? Dr. Kane approached slowly. Webb, listen. The memories you think you have aren't yours. They were implanted. The entity is capable of fabricating complete memories with emotion, pain, even smell. Everything you felt, everything, is a construction. My hand clenched around the recorder. And what if you're wrong? What if he's human? Then we'll be making a terrible mistake, she said, serene. But if you're wrong, Webb, and what's down there escapes, imagine what would happen. How many would die if such a consciousness reached the outside world? The guards came closer. The one with the syringe spoke in a monotone voice. You'll sleep for a few minutes, sir. You'll wake up better. The needle pierced my arm before I could react. A heat rose quickly, erasing my senses. Kane's voice dissolved in the air. Everything will be fine. Webb, tomorrow you won't remember any of this. The world went dark, and in the darkness, before consciousness left me, I heard the sound of the intercom distant, almost a whisper. Help, please, someone help me. Maybe it was just the wind. I woke up 3 days later, in a hospital in Las Vegas. The light was too white, the air too clean, and nothing made sense. The doctor said I had been found unconscious in my apartment. Diagnosis, severe food poisoning, dehydration, high fever. You were delirious, they said. You talked about voices, about cells, and about someone named Torres. My supervisor showed up on the second day with a generic bouquet and a forced smile. Man, you scared everyone. He laughed. They said you were mumbling about level C, but you know there's no level C, right? Just storage and maintenance. I nodded, but something inside me knew it was a lie. My memories were broken. Loose fragments, corridors, flickering lights, voices in the static. But everything felt like a dream that left a metallic taste in my mouth. I asked about my belongings, wallet, keys. No recorder. The nurse assured me I hadn't had anything with me when they found me. I was discharged with a recommendation, rest and hydration. But what I really needed was understanding. In the following nights, sleep betrayed me. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Torres's voice, muffled, distant, repeating my name among bursts of static. Sometimes I woke up with tears on my face, not knowing if I cried for him or for myself. I went back to work a week later. Same routine, same corridors, but everything seemed different. The walls were too clean, the silence was too perfect, as if the entire building had been reset. My coworkers acted normal, but their looks said otherwise. They watched me from afar, measuring every word, every reaction, as if they expected something or were testing something. Dr. Kane reappeared in my second week. Impeccable, calm, cordial. Any residual effects from your illness? She asked. Just some memory lapses, I replied. The doctor said it's normal. She nodded with that same rehearsed smile. Yes, Webb. Sometimes it's better not to remember everything. The brain knows what it should erase. She looked at me strangely, like someone observing an experiment about to succeed, but the forgetting didn't come. On the contrary, something inside me began to awaken. Small lapses in space. Corridors that seemed shorter. Doors I swore existed, and now weren't there. Sometimes I walked without realizing, stopping before a wall where, for some reason, I thought there should be a staircase, and always, when passing through certain areas, I felt the air change, colder, denser, as if the building was breathing again. Until one day I found what I shouldn't have, a piece of paper. Crumpled, hidden behind a loose panel, my own handwriting, Sarah Coleman. Phoenix, tell her I never stopped thinking about her. Tindaki. Words hit me like a discharge. Torres the cell, the window. Everything came back like an avalanche. I remembered his voice, his hand on the glass, the promise I made before running. They had erased me, but something in me, a spark of who I was, left a trace. I spent hours staring at that note, and anger came, cold, conscious. They stole my memories, rewrote my mind, and still, something resisted. It took me another month to find the way back. Behind the elevator shaft, there was a service corridor, hidden behind false panels, an unmarked card reader, my badge. Shouldn't have worked, but it did. The elevator descended beyond the known levels. The sound of the motor felt like a heart starting to beat. Again, level C was still there. Silent, frozen, in time. I passed through the numbered cells, feeling the air grow heavier with every step, until I found it. Cell. The black glass reflected only my face, but I knew he was there. I activated the observation panel. The polarization disappeared, and what I saw was nothing. The cell was empty. No cot, no clothes, no marks, as if no one had ever been there. But there was something in the air, a low vibration, almost a whisper. The intercom crackled, and instead of Torres's voice, I heard Kane's, "I wondered when you would come back." I turned. She was standing in the corridor, alone, without escort. "Where is he?" I asked. "Where is Torres?" She smiled sadly. "There's no one named Torres, Webb. Cell 7 has always been empty." I talked to him. I saw him. You talk to the entity. It creates perfect memories, builds people inside the mind. Torres never existed. She took something from her pocket. My recorder. "Want to listen?" She said, pressing play. My own voice filled the corridor, talking alone, pausing as if listening, but there was no other voice. None. "It doesn't just read thoughts," said Kane. "It plants them. It creates alternative versions of reality inside those who hear. And you believed you were helping a man, but you were feeding. Something that lives off human attention. Then why let me remember?" I asked. "Because we need to understand how it works. You're the only one who came back whole, or almost whole." She pointed to the cell. "Look again." The window still showed emptiness. But for an instant, I swear I saw a shadow, quick, almost imperceptible, like a human silhouette of light and darkness moving within the black. "What is that?" I asked. "Something that defies everything we understand about consciousness," Kane answered. "Maybe it's not from here. Maybe it never was." The sound returned. A low murmur, familiar, almost a voice. "Webb." The doctor immediately turned off the intercom. "It's still trying to reach you. That's how it starts. That's how it always starts." She accompanied me to the elevator. Before the doors closed, she said, "Go home, Webb, and try not to listen to the silence. It's been 6 months since then. I quit the job, moved east. As far from the desert as possible, the memories have weakened. Sometimes, Torres seems only a bad dream, but on the quietest nights when the whole world sleeps, I still hear it. The hum, the breathing, the voice. Help. Please. They say the mind creates what it fears. But what if fear is what keeps the truth hidden? What if everything they showed me and the recordings, the cameras, the emptiness, is just another layer of the lie? Maybe Torres is still there. Maybe he never existed. Or maybe he's the only one of us who still remembers what it means to be human. One thing I know, they wanted me to forget, but I never forgot. And now, you won't forget either. But this is only one of the many stories forgotten at the frontiers of time. If you've made it this far, subscribe to the channel Echoes of the Last Era to hear more tales of lost worlds, forbidden loves, and secrets hidden among the stars. Leave a like, share, and until the next echo.